Now, this morning on eNCA, we're fixing, of course, a spotlight on gender-based violence. Sadly, much of that violence happens behind closed doors in people's homes. But the victims are too scared to speak out or even report it. The UCT Children's Institute and the Mosaic Training Services and Healing Center recently completed a study on domestic violence. And here to talk to us about this is Mosaic Executive Director, Advocate Tarisai Mchuchu-Macmillan, of course, joining us right here on the South African Morning. Thank you so much for your time, Advocate, and good morning to you. Let's talk about it. Why is it so difficult to report domestic violence or any form of GBV where the perpetrator is someone that we know, someone who's from, one of our family members, someone that we trust, yet it seems that it's difficult or at least not easy to report such perpetrators?
Good morning, and good morning to your viewers as well. Thank you for having us and putting a spotlight on this issue. Well, particularly to your question around why it's so difficult, it's because it's in the family, and rightly as you say, it's people we love and people we trust, right? And part of it is that there is a norm within our culture, particularly as Africans, that whatever happens in the home stays in the home. And it's also just a South African culture, it's an African culture, but even across the world, we just see that when it comes to people we love, we want to protect. And we have these norms that have been perpetuated or that have now been ingrained in us. We grow up with it, that we do not take what's happening inside the home to outsiders. So it's seen actually as a form of betrayal when you go and expose or you disclose what's happening inside, even if it's harming and hurting you.
Advocate, I want to talk about, family members, relatives that receive the news as well, that one of their own has abused another family member. Some families may say, do not report it, Dumelo, because we don't want you to bring shame into this family. Do not report it so that we can protect the name and the dignity of this family. Why are there also enablers within families, besides the victim or the survivor who may feel afraid to report it, but why are there also enablers in the family that say, we don't want this to come out, so to bring shame into the family?
Well, the shame culture is the one that we are now working towards trying to dismantle, right? Because that's the biggest issue. So it's not necessarily that the victim is not disclosing. It's really the problem lies in the fact that we are creating an environment in which violence thrives within our families, within our communities, because we are putting this shame culture. If you disclose, it's not about protecting you, but it's about shaming the family. And because you place the burden on the victim to not shame the family, so not only do they have the burden of actually taking on the violence that they experience, whether be it physical abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse, spiritual abuse, whatever is happening to them where there's a form of power and control or inequality within them. And then we put that extra pressure and burden of shame upon them as family, because of course, no one wants to lose their family. So not only, let's say, for instance, if it's an intimate partner violence, where not only will I lose my intimate partner,
right,
be it my husband or my wife, as a result of me disclosing and living now all those people, aunts, uncles, mom, dad, who surround me, who supposed to be my support structure, I don't want to disappoint them and lose them. So what we actually really need to be doing is ensuring that us as a support structure, where we have a family member who's being hurt, we become those enablers of you can disclose, you are safe to say, and remove that burden of shame on our family members,
right,
so that they are able to save themselves from the abuse and violence that they experience.
And it's one of the recommendations you make in this study around breaking the silence and how one can break the silence. Moving on to how knowledge is power. How can knowledge contribute to, not only breaking silence, but also understanding that abuse should not be a norm. It should be reported and it should be labeled what it is, abuse.
Exactly. So for us, we really are advocating for knowledge knowledge sharing and knowledge, like understanding the patterns of domestic violence and how it manifests. So, for instance, it's easy for people to say, why didn't she tell us, in the beginning? They've always looked so happy,
right.
or that he buys her everything. So what we need to understand about abuse and domestic violence is that it lies in inequality, but that manifests in power and control. The person that often perpetrates the abuse knows how to ensure that everyone is on their side, that the family loves, and appreciate what he or she does. And particularly, most of this violence, unfortunately, is experienced by women, right? So when they're male partners, they make sure that they wow the family, almost like it's not just impressing the partner, but everyone. So it excludes people. And then by the time you feel strong enough to say, this is what's happening, or other people witness what's happening, because they're so wowed by what the partner has been doing for them, sometimes, it takes longer for them to support you, but also, again, what we talked about already about the shame culture. So what we are trying to say is, it's not enough for you to just listen to me now, talk on eNCA and say, oh, there's something called domestic violence. But what we are trying to really do is for you to understand how it affects and how it comes about. Because the police and the courts come after the fact. What we are trying to do is actually prevent the violence from happening in the first place. And that lies in us understanding how it actually manifests. The silence, the silence that you see, sometimes the awkward looks, threatening looks that you see maybe when you're at umgidi or something, when the whole family is together, but you just see this person is timid around their partner, or they're always trying to do things. You have to ask those questions so that we save each other right from the start and not wait until there's a fatality.
Yeah, I agree, Advocate. And the reason why I appreciate, this contribution from you so much is that not only are you saying we need to understand it from a domestic level to prevent it, but understand the manipulative, psychological, traits of the perpetrator who may want to position themselves as the darling of the family, so that when abuse is, reported against them, then the family will say, not him. I mean, we've seen the good deeds he's done. We've got evidence to prove that he's a good man or a good person. And those are just some of the manipulative traits that I suppose family members need to be aware of. I have to leave it there due to time, but thank you so much for contributing to this conversation. Mosaic Executive Director, Advocate Tarisai Mchuchu-Macmillan.